Yes,
Yes.
Acharya.
ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्
गुरुपरम्परम्
ॐ
ॐ
सहनाववतु
सहनावतु
सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं
कर्वावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनाधीतमस्तु
तेजस्विनावतु
विद्विषावहै ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति
शान्तिः।
Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya.
Om Tat Sat.
Om Namah Shivaya.
So we had completed verse number 12 of the 17th chapter. We will chant verse number 13. Shri Bhagavanuvacha
Shri
Bhagavanuvacha
Bhagavanuvacha
Vidhi Namasrishtannam
Vidhi
Vidhi
Namasrishtam
Namasrishnam
Mantraheenamadakshinam
Mantrahinamadakshinam
Saddhavirahitam Yajñam
Shraddhavirahitam
Shraddhavirahitam
Tamasam Parichakshate.
Tamasam
Parikshate.
Parikshate.
So having completed the Sattvika Yajna and the Rajasika Yajna, Krishna comes to the Tamasika Yajna. So he says, Vidhi Heenam Yajnam. A Yajnam which is not in accordance with the Shastric rules, Shastric Vidhi, and Asrishtannam, without the distribution of food, and Mantrahinam, without mantras. You can also take it as without the appropriate mantras. And Adakshinam, without Dakshinaha. And very importantly, Shraddha Virahitam, without Shraddha. These, under any of these conditions, Tamasam Parichaksate, that Yajna is supposed to be Tamasam. So Vidhihinam is scriptural injunctions are violated. So Chodana Viparitam. Chodana is instructions in the Shastram. And Asrishtannam. So Shankara says, Asrishtannam is Brahmanebhyaha na srishtam na dattam annam. So very careful. Na srishtam annam. Srishtam basically means what? Srishti. Okay. So here it literally means annam which is not created literally, but it has to be understood as annam which is not fit for eating, which is uncooked food. So nasrishtam means annam not prepared, uncooked food. So uncooked food, uncooked annam is also tamasic. And brahmano bhyaha na dattam annam. So not distributed in dana. So basically, brahmana here means the priests who have performed the yajna, they also should get the food. And if they have not got, it's a tamasic yajna. So remember that even if uh, a person gives less than he can afford, that also is considered tamasic. So just not giving is not enough. You have just giving is not enough. You have to give as much as you can afford. Right? So not giving danam, of course, is tamasic. But not giving the danam which you can afford, that is also tamasic. And elsewhere it is said that if it is within your means, give a cow as danam. If you cannot give a cow as danam, give a coconut. If you cannot give a coconut as danam, give some money. With the net idea being conveyed is give what you can afford. So don't give 50 paisa and say I have give danam, so I am done. Right? So it's an important law. If you can afford more and you do not give, it's a very nice law. If you can afford more and you do not give, there will come a time when you cannot give because you cannot afford. It's a very nice idea. And if today I can afford to give and I don't give, there is a papam generated. That papam will ensure That a time will come when I cannot give simply because I cannot afford to give. Important law idea we must remember. Then the next word is mantrahina. And Shankara gives a very nice definition. He says there are defects in the mantras. What is that? Mantrataha vyuktam. The yajna is done with no mantras. That is one defect. What is the second defect? Swarataha vyuktam. He has chanted the mantras either without the swaras or with incorrect swaras. Both render the chanting tamasic. Also, varnataha vyuktam. He has pronounced the mantras incorrectly. If any of these defects are there in your chanting, in the chanting of the priest, or you are chanting, then you are chanting. Either there are no mantras, or even if there are mantras, there are no swaras, or even if there are mantras with swaras, you have incorrect swaras. And even if your mantras with swaras and mantras are not correctly pronounced, they are all mantrahina. Therefore, tamasika. All considered as without mantras at all. Therefore, all considered tamasika. The next word is about adakshinam. Adakshinam means ukta dakshina rahita. Right? Without the dakshina as prescribed by Shastra. So ideally, dakshina should be given, like anything which you do. Supposing you are going to engage a maid, right? So you call the maid and then you say that, I am going to give you, say, 500 bucks for the month or 2,000 bucks for the month. What is the question the maid will ask you?
What is the work?
What is the work and how much time I require in the day? Is it not? So similarly, just as you discuss with the maid the time and the effort which is required by the maid before you give the wages, similarly, dakshina to priests. Remember, the priest will not ask for dakshina. Priests are not supposed to ask. Dakshina literally means what is given. So they cannot ask. And they will not ask. I mean, traditional priests will not ask. Therefore, it is your job as a yajamana to ensure that you take into account the time and the effort spent by the priest. And the dakshina should be reasonable enough. Right? So, and the Shastra says, why is it that the Brahmana is not supposed to ask, the priest is not supposed to ask? Asantushtaha dijo nashtaha. Dijaha is Brahmana. Asantushtaha Brahmanaha nashtaha. The discontent Brahmana is destroyed. And therefore, Brahmana is supposed to be content, satisfied with whatever dakshina is given. Therefore, it is my job to ensure that I give accordingly, that I ensure that I give a proper dakshina. But I should give according to my capacity. Otherwise, as I said before, the yajna becomes tamasika. And when I say take into account the time and effort, I mean, it's more broad than that, right? I have to take into account the present day circumstances, the cost of living, whether Dakshina will enable the priest to go and feed his family, all those things I have to take into account. I cannot say that my father used to give 100 rupees for the yajna, so I also give 100 rupees. So your father was giving it 50 years ago. Today is different, right? So these are all voluntary duties. And this is the beauty of Vedic society. When the people take their voluntary duties seriously, then there's not much need for too many rules. Right? There's not need for too many rules. But the more you neglect your voluntary duty, the more rules come into the picture. I'll give an example. So when I joined the bank long ago, okay, it's almost 1976. I joined SBI as an officer. Those days, we had a rule saying that officers are entitled to take a servant with them in the train. Gentleman's servant, as they say, right? So in a train, in a first class compartment, you could travel. And your servant could travel in the second class compartment or third class compartment. So what did people do? They started misusing that. Now you wanted to go to left from here to say someplace, you would travel with your wife or your children. And you would show that servant when there is unreserved compartment, right? Names are not given. So you show that servant is traveling and it claim that. So sooner or later, this was discovered by the bank and they deleted that rule. You can only travel alone. The idea is that as long as you are voluntarily compliant with society, a lot of things happen. There's another example I can give you. This is of course given by Shastra also. One king wanted to do Rudra Abhishekam. What is Rudra Abhishekam?
For conquering the lot of
No.
empires.
What exactly is Rudra Abhishekam?
Oh, that is for
Shivling.
the shivling.
You
Shiv-
pour
Shivling.
milk on a shivling, right? So what happened was that the king wanted everybody to pour. So what did he do? Around the shivling, the king built a huge pot, right? And he said that he issued a instruction saying that each resident of the village should go and pour one glass of milk into that pot. And the pot was very tall, right? And there was a ladder which was just sufficient for your hand to reach and pour. So you couldn't look into the pot and see what was there. So what did the people do? What should they have done? They should have all got one glass of milk and poured it, right? Because the guards kept, an attendance sheet who came and who did not. So some people poured in milk. What did most of the people do? They thought everybody's pouring milk. Why should I waste one glass of milk? I'll pour water. Nobody can see what I'm pouring, right? So everybody did that. And when finally the king went and saw the pot had not only water. Everybody done the same thing. Others are pouring milk. Why should I pour? So society has to have minimum rules only if the rules are voluntarily accepted. And that is why today we find so many rules are there. For everything, there is a rule. Why? Because we have lost the capacity to self-regulate. Okay, so then the next word is Shraddha Virahitam. There is no Shraddha at all in the Yajna. Remember that what is the primary benefit of this Yajna? It gives you Chitta Shuddhi. Right? And the fact that I am offering, let us say, one glass of milk to Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva doesn't depend, depend on that miserable glass of milk. The primary benefit is for me to get me Chitta Shuddhi. Right? And therefore, similarly, all the Shraddha that you do, Tarpanam, Shraddham, offerings to your great grandfathers, the offering itself doesn't matter. Whether you offer one banana or 20 bananas, it doesn't matter. But all this is part of Pancha Mahayajna meant for your Chitta Shuddhi. And if I should value Chitta Shuddhi, the primary requirement is that I should have Shraddha. And if Shraddha is not there, then the Yajna itself is Tamasika Yajna. That is why the name Shraddham is there. That which you do with Shraddha. And Shankara adds here, all this teaching is for what purpose? Why are they teaching you about Tamasika Yajnas? Not that you can do them, but that you can avoid them.
Avoid it.
That's a very important note, because you might say, no, Krishna taught about Tamasika Yajna, so it's okay to do it. Shankara says, no, you can't do that. He's teaching for avoidance purposes.
One question before we
Haji,
proceed.
Boli.
We almost after every puja that we do in our household, there is a sloka saying that mantrahinam, kriyahinam, vidhihinam, sureshwara, yat pujitam maya devi paripurnam tadastu me, or like that, which indicates that if there is any error in our puja,
Yeah.
then please forgive us.
Yes.
So does it mean that this mantra hina dakshina mantrahinam that you explained so very well, it looks to be contradictory,
Well,
that how the God will forgive us if
yeah.
I have done mantrahina puja.
Okay, so you have to look at what Karmakanda says. Karmakanda says that where you do Sakama Puja, then you have to very strictly go by the rules. Right?
Okay.
But where you do Nishkama Puja, it doesn't matter if you make mistakes. So since as Grahasthas, we are not supposed to do too much of Sakama. Every puja ultimately is meant for Chitta Shuddhi. The moment you do puja for Chitta Shuddhi or Loka Sangraha, which also gives Chitta Shuddhi, that rule is bypassed. And therefore you just say this line in the end, just to tell the Lord that, look, oh Lord, I have done for Chitta Shuddhi, so even if I have made mistakes, it's okay.
Okay. Beautifully explained. Thank you.
Fine. So now let us look at verse number 14. We'll chant. Devadaj Guru Prajnaha
Devadit Guru
Devadich Guru
Prajna
Prajna
Pujanam Shauchamarjavam
Pujanam
Pujanam
Shauchamarjavam
Shauchamarjavam
Brahmacharyam Ahimsa cha
Brahmacharya Himsa
Cha
Shariram Tapa Uchyate.
Shariram Pa Uchyate.
Okay, now if you look at the mantras we have been doing with the three types of yajnas, the yajna topic is over. Before that, ahara was discussed, three types of aharas. And now we have to see tapaha and danam. Tapaha, austerity. So austerity is of three types. Why? Because the instruments of austerity are also of three types. Kaikam, vachikam, manasikam. Verbal, mental, and physical. And each of these can be divided into the guna-wise classification, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Right. First, he takes up shariram tapaha. Shariram tapaha is that which is done with the physical body. It's also called kaika tapaha. Kaika means physical. Right. So kaika tapam is what pujanam, all types of rituals where you are actually sitting down and using your body. Supposing you're using it to give flowers or to pour some oblations. All that is kaikam. So puja basically is all sharirika tapaha. Right. Now, for us, especially for the elders among us, those who have children, when you start doing this, you'll find that many children, especially if, as unfortunately happens, when we were younger and the children were younger, we didn't have much of this exposure to this. So we didn't do too much of puja at home unless we have been living with elders. But many of us did not live with elders. They had individual families, nuclear families. So we didn't do all this tapa and all that. Now, and therefore what happened was the children grew up without that benefit. Now children are grown up and we are old. So we have gone and studied all this. And now we say, oh, we should have done puja. And now when you sit to do puja and the children come, they are not exposed to the atmosphere. They say all this superstition. And therefore, you have to explain what is the role of a ritual. So, do you remember the sloka? Alasyam hi manushyanam sharirasto mahan ripu. What does it mean?
Laziness is the
alasya is the
The
greatest
great
enemy.
enemy
Yes,
is
Manushyanam, for human beings, alasyam shariraha mahanripo is the greatest enemy of the body. Right? And today, of course, see, earlier on, what used to happen was when we bought a TV, at least you had to get up and go to the TV to change the channels. Right? Today, you don't have to do that. You got a remote. And earlier on, when you went to sleep and you didn't want the AC running throughout the night, you had to get up and switch it on, switch it off. But that's not necessary today. You have a timer on your AC remote. And then you have now all these new, voice systems coming up where you don't even have to type. You just say things and it gets typed. Everything is getting more advanced. Earlier on, if you wanted to know the time, you had to get up and go to the clock. Now, what do you say? Alexa, what is the time? What's happening? Technology is giving your body more and more time. The discipline which requires you to get up, do something is not there. And it's almost as if Shastra anticipated all this. Shastra says there is a discipline. Doesn't matter what technology you have. Get up in the morning, have a bath, do your Subhasura Namaskara, say your prayers, do your Parayanam, and do your meditation. All this is, even Surya Namaskara, for example, that's a puja. And then do some Shravanam, right? And at least when you get up in the morning, thankfully in my house, that is still maintained. You don't put on the TV. There is no TV anchor shouting into you about what terrible things are happening everywhere. And now, Rahul Gandhi is saying things about Modi and Modi is not responding and what Trump is saying. All these things are not screamed into your ears. So your morning remains satvika. And only those who have experienced the two will know what I mean. All these things are most disturbing for your mind. So that's the first thing. What more? What is the second benefit of rituals? There is a relationship which you have with Ishvara. What is the relationship? It is in the form of Karana Karya connection, cause effect relationship. And remember that in this life, you have a relationship with your wife, with your kids, with your parents, with your friends. But that relationship is not there in every life. Each of your worldly relationships is meant for this birth because they are all dependent upon your prarabdha. And your prarabdha gets over with this life. And therefore, in the next life, since no balanced prarabdha of this life remains, those relationships do not come in. Right? But in every life, your relationship with Ishvara remains because he is the creator and you're the product. Right? Even if I am not a human being in the next birth, then I may be a mosquito or a cockroach. But does that karya karana sambandha break? No. The cockroach may not know that he has a relationship with Ishvara. The cockroach may not learn the Upanishads. The cockroach may not chant mantras. But that karya karana sambandha doesn't go away. It remains intact. And therefore, in our tradition, whenever you pray, you will find that at least some aspect of Ishvara is invoked in that prayer. And there are very many beautiful prayers. Body has come from food and is maintained by the food. And I have lived my life eating the food. And therefore, when this life is over, oh Lord, I will offer that body as food to the elements because the elements have maintained my body. All this is part of spiritual discipline. Puja is part of spiritual discipline to maintain your relationship with the Lord. For that matter, even in worldly relationships, especially in today's world, when you find that husbands and wives and children are all, moving in different directions during the daytime, A family which remains together, you will find that they invent rituals. Have you seen that? There's all families like this who are, not together during the daytime. Some wife goes to work, husband goes to another place to work, children go to college or school or whatever. They will find that some rules are invented. Saturday night movie must together. Everybody must have breakfast together. Sunday, everybody must meet for lunch. Have you found this?
Yes,
Yes.
some families play board games together.
Well, something is all the ritual. What is this? These are nothing but rituals. And what is the purpose of the relationship, of the ritual? It is to maintain your relationship. So if there are relationships necessary to maintain these very temporary relationships, where rituals have been invented and are maintained as a strict discipline for keeping these relationships intact, how much more so should you do it for that relationship which is not limited to this birth, which stretches across every birth of yours? And therefore, these body rituals, kaika rituals, are very important. Puja is also important. Therefore, he says, Deva Dvij Guru Pragya Pujana. Worship of whom? Devaha, Dvijaha, the Brahmanaha, Guru, and Pragya. So, Deva Pujanam in many forms, right? Because Lord really speaking, Ishvara is formless. But how do you decide how to worship the formless one? When I say Ishvara is Akasha Rupa, where will I offer flowers? Where will I offer the oblations? And therefore, the same Veda, which tells you that the Lord has no form, that same Veda tells you that you have a difficulty because of your mind. Your mind cannot encompass infinitude, and therefore learn to use forms for worship. And that is why Karma Kanda teaches you to see everything as Lord. Everything which you see in the universe is the Lord. From your neighbor's cat to your neighbor to the tree downstairs, every form has to be the Lord. Because you cannot separate any form from the Lord. Why? Because any form exists. The tree exists, the neighbor's cat exists, the dog exists, the milkman exists. And the Lord is what? The existence principle himself. Satta is the Lord. And therefore, that, esoteric idea that everything is a Lord is difficult to digest intellectually. So Karma Kanda says, learn to see everything as the Lord. The form is the Lord. And therefore, Dvija Pujana, the twice born, the Brahmanas who understand the Shastram and follow Shastram, they should be worshipped. And when you say Dvijaha, twice born, what are the two births? One is the birth from the mother, and the other is
After Upanayan Sanskar?
Upanayana.
after Upanayanam, which means it's a birth from the Guru. Therefore, study of the Shastram, the opportunity to study the Shastram, second birth. Therefore, whenever you see a person who lives in accordance with the Shastram, remember he's a Dvijaha, and therefore you should do Namaskar. So Dvijaha doesn't necessarily mean over here Brahmana, Varna, not caste. A person who lives his life according to the Shastram is a Brahman. Right? In fact, Upanishad says only the one who achieves moksha in this life, who knows Brahman in his life, only he is a Brahmana. The others are only, Brahmana bandhus. We saw that in Upanishad class yesterday, Chandogya class. Then Guru Pujanam. So worship anybody who has contributed towards refining your mind. This doesn't mean a Vedanta Acharya only. It means your LKG teacher. It means your music teacher. It means your yoga teacher. It means your teacher of the gym also. Anybody has to be worshipped. And of course, it means the one who teaches Shastra and therefore gives you the glimpse of what it is to be infinite, what it means to be beyond death. That person, of course, has to be worshipped. So prajnaha. So prajnaha means the one who is a jnani, the one who has prajna, wisdom. So why does he use the word prajna here? Because Dvija may not be prajna. Dvija is one who lives in accordance with the Shastra. He might be living in accordance with Karma Kanda. So he's still Dvijaha. He may not be a jnani. Prajna means not only is he Dvijaha, not only is a dharmic person, but he also knows Brahma Vidya. And to all these people, you must do namaskaram. And namaskaram is physical, right? You use the hands, you fall on your body, flat on your body, and therefore sharirikam tapaha. It is bodily tapaha. Okay. Then he outlines some other forms of shariram tapaha, body austerity. Remember, these are all part of body austerity. Shaucham is physical purity, which means what? Kaika tapaha, taking a bath regularly, seeing that your nails are cut, seeing that your house is clean. So don't clean the house and throw the garbage outside. Seeing the surroundings are also clean. All this is part of Shaucham, part of Kaika tapaha, part of Sharirika tapaha. Then Arjavam. Arjavam is alignment between thoughts, words, and actions. Very important. Alignment between thoughts, words, and action. In fact, Arjama is defined as Rujatvam, straightforwardness. And SPG talks of, in one of his classes, he talks of punctuality as being an example of Arjama. So he says that when you make an appointment with somebody, you must be on time. And not only that, if you are in a position of dominance, that is to say, if you're in a position which gives you an advantage, like I'm the boss and I give an appointment to the employee, to my subordinate at, let us say, 4 p.m. It is all the more important for me to ensure that that 4 p.m. is not broken. So that the dominant, and this is in today's world, if you see today's corporate life, it is rarely ever kept. Bosses routinely make employees wait after giving them appointments. This is not Arjava. Okay, because what you say is different from what you have done, and therefore it's not Arjava. Of course, there may be, circumstances where you are just not possible for you to meet that time. You are given a person time, and it is just, he has already come, and it is not possible for you to meet. What should you do? You should go out, meet him, apologize for the delay, and if you are a boss, you should ask your secretary or somebody to make him comfortable while he waits. Right? And not just in the in the office. Supposing you are going home from work and the train is late, especially in Bombay, you missed 4 trains or a massive train damage, and jam is there, and your family is waiting for you for dinner. What should you do?
Call them and let them
Call
know.
them and tell them that I'm going to be late. That is Harjava. You can't simply not do anything else and play cards with your friends, right? So you have to, that's Arjava. So there are many such small things. Supposing you have done a resolution, a sankalpa, saying that every day I shall do 5 japa malas. Fulfillment of that sankalpa is arjava. Fulfillment of any promise I give anybody is arjava. Because you always remember the definition of arjava. The alignment between thoughts, words, and actions. Only when these three are aligned, this particular value is met. And if one of them is not in alignment, then you are not in arjava. Then there is brahmacharyam. So brahmacharyam has different meanings where the grahasthas. For a grahastha, brahmacharyam means appropriate sexual relationships, chastity within the marriage. But for a brahmachari, vanaprastha, and sannyasi, brahmacharya means total celibacy. So this we should understand. Next one is ahimsa. So ahimsa is non-violence at all the three levels: verbal, mental, and physical. But here, since we are talking about, sharirika tapaha, it is more appropriate to consider physical violence, sharirika violence. And it is not just in dealing with people. Just when you come, go and you don't beat up people, doesn't mean that you have ahimsa. Right? Ask yourself small question, which you might not want to ask. When you come home from work or from outside, how do you deal with taking off your shoes and clothes? Do you just chuck it in one corner and go away, or do you neatly fold them up? When you have finished cooking in the vessel, in the kitchen, do you bang the kitchen vessel around, or do you, wash them neatly and put them away?
Breakfast.
That's on the table. Yeah.
Okay, put the what they call sound off because people are talking. Okay, so how do you do these things, especially when you're angry? Anger, irritation is there for everybody. Do you handle them carefully? Do you handle the kitchen vessel carefully, even when you're angry, or do you just bang it down? All this is part of ahimsa. You may not think so, but it is. Even for example, let us say I have finished reading the Bhagavad Gita for the time being. I've come to class, I've heard. I thought I would go and read the mantra once again. So I read it. And if I'm comfortable with Sanskrit or Hindi, I have read the Bhashyam part of it also in the relative book. And I'm finished. What do you do with the textbook later? Do you just leave the table on the table and go? Or do you take your saffron cloth and do you cover it nicely and put it away? And some people might use it, as a stand also. Put a cup of tea on top. So all this is part of ahimsa. And Shankara therefore comments. He writes a very nice commentary here. He says, Krishna has reminded you in the 18th chapter. Of course, we have not done. Okay. But Krishna has reminded you that there are 5 components for every action. Adhishthanam tatha karta, karanam cha pratik vidham, vividhascha pratak cheshtaha, taivam chaivanna pancham. So adhishthanam. What is the adhishthanam of any action? The substratum where the action resides. From which the action
Intent?
The thought,
Is
the
it intent?
sankalp.
Annamaya kosha. If you want to become a glass, you need a hand.
Yeah.
So Annamaya kosha is the adhishtha. And cheshtha. Cheshtha is the energy. So pranamaya kosha. Karanam is the instrument which belongs to manomaya kosha. Karta is the doer, which is vijnanamaya kosha. So Krishna has prescribed 5 components in every action: Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, and Daivam. Daivam is the presiding deity of the Adhisthana. To give an example, I am talking right now. The mouth is involved, right? Annamaya Kosha. Speech, Vak is involved. Indriyam is involved. Prana, breathing is involved. And I am the one who decided to talk. Therefore, the Karta is involved. Right? And now, we might think that supposing you are doing something, how do you decide whether it is Shariram Tapaha or not? So Shankara writes a very nice note here. He says, Sharira Pradhana Tapaha. Because when you are doing puja or when you are chanting a mantra, it is not only the body, right? You require prana also, you require mind also to recall the mantra, you require the vak also. And therefore he says, Shariram Tapaha is Tapaha where all the actions taken into account, you have to consider which is the dominant action. Right? So say puja. Puja, chanting is there. The dominant action is chanting. Chanting requires the tongue. Right? Of course, you require your, and chanting requires tongue, and of course requires oblations. And therefore Sharirat. Right? So that's a nice point made over here. Now we will look at the 15th month. We will chant. Anudvegakaram vakyam
Anudvegakaram vakyam
satyam priyahitam chayat
satyam
Satyam
priyam
Prihitam Chayat
swadhyayabhyasanam chaiva
adhyayabhyasanam chaiva
vangamayam tapa uchyate.
Vangamaya Tapa
tapa
Uchyate.
uchyate.
Sharirikam tapa is over. Now he is coming to vak tapas, verbal austerity. And why is the vak indriyam considered so important? When you're talking about verbal austerity, when you're talking about the indriyam austerity, there are 10 indriyas. And out of the 10 indriyas, which is the most powerful one? The powerful one is vak indriyas. Because all written words are basically only, written symbols of the spoken word. And why is vak important? Why is spoken word important? Because if you cannot speak, you cannot communicate. Only that, if you cannot communicate, whatever knowledge you have cannot be communicated. If your guru cannot communicate it, that superior knowledge which he has, you cannot benefit from it. Therefore, whatever benefit we get from intellects which are superior to us, we get only because of organ of speech. That's why I said it could be words also, written words, but written words are only symbols of speech. So ultimately, the idea is speech. In fact, moksha itself is possible only through Shravan. So where is Shravanam if your guru doesn't have a mouth? And therefore, I have to understand that when I talk, I have to understand that the words are very, very powerful. Right? Words can soothe people. They can calm people. They can also inflame passions and they can cause violence. But as you can see on social media today, anything you open, people are only trying to instigate. And sadly enough, a lot of people are also instigated. What is the net result? There is unrest everywhere because mental unrest leads to verbal unrest. Verbal unrest leads to physical violence. And therefore Krishna is saying that Learn to use your words wisely. And what does wisely mean? You have to have appropriate words of high quality. Number one. So when you use words, there are two things, quality and quantity. Quality should be high, quantity should be minimum. So supposing I ask, how should I reduce the quantity of my speech? How should I reduce the number of words that I speak? There's a very good, rule for this. Because a lot of us don't follow this rule. What is that rule? Okay, let me tell you.
Speak only when you need to.
No.
You
The
are
rule
ready.
is that
Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat, na bruyat, asatyam apriyam.
those are all subsidiary rules. First rule is when you go to talk to somebody, what is your expectation?
That person should listen to me.
And therefore, please ask, do you want to listen to me?
Can I say something? Yes.
Can I say something which you will listen to? Because very often, like if you tell wives or husbands, can I say something? They will say, yes, you can say. And then you will be happy until you ask the next question. Will you listen? Then she'll say, of course not. So giving you permission to talk is not the same as saying that I will listen. Right? So when you start asking people, and you can start this with your spouse at home, what do you discover? Nobody is interested in listening to you. Right? The first rule. Therefore, if you want to talk to a person who wants to listen. Then only you should talk. And therefore, here Krishna gives us parameters for controlling the quality of your words. And this is a vak tapas. So, anudvega karam. So, praninam, Shankara describes, praninam adukha karam vakyam. Praninam means for others, vakyam words, adukha karam, which do not cause dukkham, which do not hurt or disturb somebody. Okay. Remember that there are many couples where there is no physical violence, but the verbal violence goes on all the time. And you will find that verbal hinsa is as bad, if not worse, than physical hinsa. And that's why Shankara says, Prani Nam. He doesn't say Manushya Nam. Right? Therefore, don't even shout at your dog, your cat. In fact, there's one school of thought which says, talk nicely to the plants in your house. Because if you shout at the plants, if you curse them, they will not grow as well as if you talk to them.
Yes. And that's so true, actually.
And that's a lot of people say it's very true. So I, of course, have nothing. I got what's called a green thumb. No? I don't have a green thumb. So I don't have plants. But a lot of people say even the plants, it makes sense because they are also living beings. Okay. So that is Anudvega Karam. Words which do not hurt others. Then is the controversial word, Satyam. So Satyam means alignment of your words with your thoughts. So the thinker you and the speaker you, there should be harmony. Because if you think something and say something else, what is happening? There is a split coming in. A thinker-doer split. Puja Swami Dayananda says, thinker-doer split comes in, and that weakens you. Therefore, Satyam. Because Asatyam is that which has the split, where the thought is different from the word. Right? So, Asatyam is the greatest obstacle to spiritual growth. And how should I proceed in my spiritual life to implement this? So very simple. Take a list, right? Take a paper. And you have to be very honest with this, okay? So make a list of all the falsehoods which you normally tell.
Yes.
You can, do this in an Excel sheet and put a 32-bit password onto it. Unbreakable. Okay. So write all the truths, untruths, the falsehoods which you normally tell, and then divide them into falsehoods which I can avoid and falsehoods which I cannot avoid. It's a very interesting exercise. Avoidable lies and unavoidable lies. What should you first work on?
Avoidable.
Avoidable life.
Avoidable lies. How should you do it? You say every time I, do or say one of those unavoidable lies, I shall do some prayashchitam. So I can do some prayer, or I can do, and if you want to be really good at it, you should say that I will do 108 japas, so 108 japmalas, which will take you 20 minutes, right? So every lie that you utter, you're going to spend 20 minutes on that. You will find that sooner or later, the number of lies on the avoidable lies, they come down. Right? And rather than do the 20 minutes japa every day, you would rather not tell the lie because it's avoidable in any case. So do that. Once that list is minimum or eliminated, then you move to the unavoidable lies and try to reduce those also. Doing the same thing, prayashchitam, some charity, some social work for every time you tell a unavoidable lie. What do you discover? That, oh, this is not really unavoidable. So after eliminating the avoidable list, you will find that you are reworking the unavoidable list into two. Again, avoidable and unavoidable. So this process you keep on doing sooner or later. I'm not saying you can eliminate, but you can definitely minimize and you will feel the difference yourself. You will not tell a lie as far as possible. Okay. The next one is Priyam. It's a very important thing for us because especially for those who are working in positions of authority, the idea is that speak only words which make others comfortable. So even criticism, should be made in such a manner as not to hurt the person receiving the criticism. Right? How do you do this? I used to do it when I was the boss. You call the person. My way was different. Maybe you all can find a different way. I call the person. Before calling him, I get a file. What all has he done? So for 15 minutes, you will offer the person chai and biscuits and samosas and tell him what a great thing what a great worker he is, what all things he has done, how the company has benefited from him. And last 5 minutes, you will tell him, but these things you can possibly work on. You don't tell him you are an idiot. You tell him these things are not good for the company and I would like it if you can work on it. If you use that, it is fitting the definition of Priyam, even if you are criticizing. Okay, so with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions?
All very practical tips, Acharya, for day-to-day living and improving our interactions.
Ultimately, it is all meant for us,
Yeah.
our growth. So thank you for your patience. Om पूर्णमदः
पूर्णमिदं
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 पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णात् पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ तत्सत् ॐ नमः शिवाय Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Om.
Bye.
Thank you.